So today we're at the Antique Auto Museum at Elkhorn, Manitoba, and we have a video for you of the cars, which are the main emphasis of the museum. Fantastic museum. They also have a country schoolhouse, one-room school, a typical 1912 farmhouse, an old Anglican church there that they're just working on restoring now, and out front here they have a London and Brandon steam tractor, quite a large steam tractor. A very striking example of an antique car right in the front door here, a 1930 American Austin car, and this is described as one of the few remaining cars of the first years of the Austin that were manufactured. And this was formerly owned by Mr. Wingman of Lampton, Saskatchewan. The last year was driven was 1946, and it's been restored beautifully and is here as kind of the prime exhibit, the introductory exhibit at the Elkhorn Museum. So we'll take you through the museum. We'll have a little bit of a walking tour. Certainly won't cover everything, but there's literally thousands of artifacts here for people to see, and well worth the $10 admission. Located right on Highway number 1, just at the east side of Elkhorn, Manitoba. So it's very easy to find, and it's very visible from the highway, and a great place to go to.
And I'll ask you, young man, how many staff do you have on for the summer?
Generally we have 4 people on staff at a time. Usually it's only like 3 summer students and a proper manager, but this year you just got 4 summer students on, as you don't probably have a curator this year because COVID's kind of just got us all messed up.
And is this your first year at the museum?
Year 6, actually.
Year 6. So graduated from VCI in Virden, or?
No, I graduated from in town, and I'm a university student.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
So we'll just do a quick walkthrough because we want to see the museum ourselves, and certainly don't want to bore you with all our thoughts and ideas here, but there's a history section here showing some artifacts, some military artifacts, and some of the honor rolls from the World Wars. This is all just in the front area of the museum, and as indicated on the plaque there, dedicated in the memory of Isaac Richard Clarkson, the founder and donator and the first curator of the museum. Did a great work here in bringing all these original cars together, and there's a whole kind of cabinet full of the kind I can afford, the miniatures, the cast miniatures, which are very popular.
Can you read the plaque on this cute little, looks like a recumbent bicycle, not quite recumbent?
Well, hand-powered wheelchair, actually. Donor is unknown.
Okay.
Not supposed to touch anything, so I won't even try.
And Nipoa has a torch from the Vancouver Olympics, and Elkhorn has a torch from the Olympic torch relay from January of '88.
Some more farming history pictures, certainly some military history, and a whole bunch of artifacts here from military background, farming background. Depiction of the first cow, or Mr. Dahl leading his first cow into Elkhorn, brought it all the way from Brandon. So he could homestead here in 1882. Whole case full of military wear, bullets, bayonets, reminder of some of the more harsh times in Canadian history. It's actually amazing how many artifacts that gathered up from a community or from a region. Here a pump organ like there was in many homes and churches back in the day. This one looks in beautiful shape. Probably would still play. And then the heart of every community, the telephone office. The telephone operator could hook up your phone to somebody else's phone on a different line. Telephone operators knew where the doctor was all the time, knew where the fire chief was all the time. Some would say that the telephone operators knew where everybody was all the time. But it was an integral part of keeping people connected, especially in times of emergency or just general usage of the phones. These were in place in most rural Manitoba communities until about 1972. And up above on the wall is the picture of the various phones that were available through the years. And it gave way to the dial phones in the 1970s. The phones actually were a work of art in themselves, with the oak cabinets to store the batteries, the magneto to generate the electricity, something that a lot of people will remember, but a lot of young people won't realize that during a lightning storm the phone would ring, because the lightning would strike the phone lines, their steel wire, and carry an electrical current down the wire, so during a lightning storm the phone would ring almost constantly.
Even at the cabinetry for the switchboard is oak and beautifully done, with a footrail at the bottom as they did their shift and had to sit all those hours. Another wheelchair.
Then there's the inevitable royal section showing King George and the Queen Mother, as we got to know her to be. Of course, Elizabeth and the late Philip, Prince Philip. The emphasis that Diana had on our whole society in her short life. And then a picture of probably one of the most influential and most controversial Prime Ministers of Canada, Mackenzie King. Prime Minister of Canada during the 1920s, some of the 30s, and all through the Second World War. He did at least one speaking tour of Western Manitoba, and is reported in the local paper of the day, the Neepawa Press, that he actually spoke in the Roxy Theatre at Neepawa. Maybe he spoke here at Elkhorn or Verdun as well. We don't know.
Hard to make it out against the backlight of the window, but I think perhaps that is from the hairdresser's shop. And yes, there's some curling irons and the inevitable magazines that you would have to read while you were getting your hair done.
And then the optometrist. And various kinds of glasses in the drawer there. And a whole cabinet of glasses. Beautiful work again. Most cabinets, lawyers' offices, optometrists, telephone offices, dentist's office. Oak was the wood of choice to make all the cabinetry. Industry in itself. So the first car we'll talk about here, and we'll just talk about one or two of the cars, because there is literally dozens and dozens of cars here. But this is a favorite of mine because it's a McLaughlin. And McLaughlin was a Canadian-made car. In my years of auctioneering in different times, I got a chance to sell several McLaughlin cutters and buggies. But they switched from cutters and buggies, sleighs, to cars. And Sam McLaughlin and his brother and his dad were buggy makers, and they made cars, and they then be amalgamated with Buick, and then General Motors, and McLaughlin Buick became Buick, and remained as a Canadian company, General Motors of Canada, and Sam McLaughlin stayed on as president of the company until he was nearly 100 years old. I believe he died in 1972. A tremendous heritage of Canadian cars there. So there's two models here, at least in the museum, and they are actually a very reliable car. They were a little more expensive than the Ford Model T. And we're just going to go down the row here. You can see over my shoulder, you can see the various cars. There's another McLaughlin, 1913 McLaughlin next to it.
Each car has a write-up on it. So for those who have the time and are really keen and not doing a video, there's a lot you can learn at each display. It is interesting because we were checking out the museum online and there was 2 Facebook reviews, and one of them was an interesting review because it wasn't what they expected, and I gather they've been to some rather large ones in the US of A. Well, in rural Manitoba we have a little different financial mindset, and this is a little bit more in the humility and humbleness of rural Canada. And I think it's absolutely amazing what the community has been able to hold together and can carry on with.
So just, Chris, I'll just walk down. We want to take time to look at it ourselves more closely, but just give you an idea of what's here. I may mention the odd vehicle as we go down the road here, but there's literally 4 rows, 4 rows of cars, a double row down the center in places, and down each side of this huge shed. And so we'll just take a quick walk here. We'll play Jay Leno for a little bit here. I think Jay Leno would enjoy this place. He's a kind of a very, very rich man, but he's got a lot of very, very expensive cars. But I think he'd really appreciate all the cars are here and the amount of effort, as Christine said, that the community has put into it. So we'll just take a walk here and see all these tremendous old vehicles here. More McLaughlins.
Oh, I want to go in this touring car on a nice paved road. Or this one.
A lot of car names here that certainly know more. There was literally dozens and dozens of car makers both in Canada and in the United States. Overland is a name that was well known at one time, this one right here. A horse-drawn vehicle here, which most people recognize as a very elaborate hearse. And the coffin would be inside the glass case there on display for the person's last trip from the church to the cemetery. But this was a horse-drawn vehicle.
And did it happen to be a McLaughlin one?
Well, that's a good question. You're right. Good question. Doesn't say, I don't think. Although an interesting bit of trivia on the, well, certainly not trivial to the families, it was used in the wintertime, obviously, sleighs. A black curtain would indicate an adult death. A white curtain would indicate a child's death.
Okay. Are you going to try and do both sides at the same time? Because I'm just looking at this rather interesting,
Yes.
low profile, last licensed apparently in 1976. That's fascinating.
It's a cabin car trailer. It's a camper trailer.
Ultralight.
Very ultralight, yes. I don't know if we can break the rules of the, no, I better not break the rules a little bit and open up the vehicle there, but anyway. 1946. made in Fort Erie, Ontario. Yeah, we'll do both sides here, and as we go along, we're not going to give a lot of detail, just show vehicles as we go here.
And there's the predecessor of the 31 picnic hamper.
Yes.
Can't properly see into it, but it looks like it's nicely appointed inside, and take into consideration it got you up off the ground and out of a canvas tent, and that was canvas back then, not.
Yes. Apparently pulled by a 47 Dodge Coupe, which is a two-door vehicle, and quite a stylish, very collectible car nowadays too. You see here a Willys. There's Willys Overland. These are all cars from the 1910s to 1920. These first cars that we're looking at.
Are those wheels wooden spoke?
Oh yes.
I thought so. I'm looking through the lens.
Yeah, probably. I think ash, but I'm not sure. Ash or oak. Now the wire spoke wheels didn't come into common usage until the late 1920s. The first commonly used car that commonly used them was the Ford Model A. It was a wire spoke wheel, which gave better suspension.
There's one with signal lights and a different color.
Yes, I don't see a plaque on it to tell us what it is, so. But it does say that is a Studebaker. The green one is a Studebaker.
And the one next to it is Studebaker as well. And for those who end up coming to the museum after watching this video, it is interesting to note, as I look through the camera at the image on the screen, the colors are different. This car directly in front of me, when I just glance at it, looks black, but the camera brings it up as blue. So I'm not gonna, I think it probably is blue, but in the lighting it affects it. But this is a very green Studebaker.
I doubt that this is the original color. I think this has been an applied color at a later time by someone who didn't like black.
And
well, we got a real modern vehicle here, a 1956 Mercury truck. And with the box and hoist, they were the mainstay of many a farm. If somebody had one of these, they thought they had the world by the tail on the downhill run. They could haul the eggs to market, they could haul the grain to market, they could take it out to the pasture and throw some bales out to the cows. Fantastic truck. And it was, they were a very, very good truck, there's no question of that.
and you didn't have to shovel it out, it had a hoist.
Yes, indeed. Another Studebaker, this one from 1928. And I don't know if they started the wire wheels in 28, but Ford certainly did. These got the wire spoke wheels.
And the spare is attached securely with its two leather straps.
It's a 1918 Chevy.
So they aren't necessarily in chronological order.
No. But they are, the Chevy and the Ford duked it out in the pricing market. You could buy a Chevy for less than $500, you could buy a Ford for less than $500 back in the day. And they were the more expensive cars, were $1,000, $1,200, but the Ford and Chev tried to get to the working man's market. An old Chevy truck here. 19...
Oh, not really a truck.
Oh, sorry, coupe. It's a coupe, sorry.
A very square, boxy little coupe.
Yeah. I bet you a few of them got converted into trucks. Sorry.
No, that's two sets of eyes. And how many of us over 65, 70 rode in one of these?
66 Chrysler Imperial. donated from the Thomas Jeffrey estate.
Tommy Jeffrey, that would be a relative of mine.
So this is the next one is a 29 Pontiac 6-cylinder, similar to the 28 Chev that my father had, and I can remember as a very young child riding in that car. Not this particular one, but one very similar. This is a year newer, and Pontiac, but Pontiac and Chev were always quite similar.
Oh, and there's a pedal bike tucked in beside.
I mentioned the 28 Ford earlier, replaced the Model T, much to the upset of Henry Ford Sr., but they went ahead with the changes, and including the wire wheels, much different shifting system, had a clutch, just a whole different system than the Model T was. But Model T was starting to lose market share, and I think after 1930-31, Ford never dominated the market share ahead of GM ever again. So they probably switched to the Model A just a little too late to maintain the majority of the market share in the North American car market.
Is this a good time to say what the grandson had to tell the senior?
Oh, yeah. That was a little later, but Henry Ford never really gave up control of the company, and his son, I believe it was Edsel Ford, had a son and who took over the company a number of years later. Henry went in to see the grandson on his first day on the job, and he says, "Well, son, what are you going to do today for the company?" And he says, "Grandpa, best thing I can do for the company is convince you to go home." And it probably wasn't welcome words, but it was true, and the company changed as Henry gave up his control of the company. But hard to do for a man who built the empire and changed the automobile industry forever, but had to come. Time had come for the new generation. So that was how blunt it apparently was.
When you say Ford never recovered the dominance in the industry, and yet there's the Thunderbird.
Oh yes. And then there was the Mustang. I'm not sure if they have a Mustang in here, probably somewhere. But no, Ford is still a dominant player in the industry. There's no question of that. So we'll move on down the line here. Here's a car that wasn't hugely popular. It's a big, powerful car. Big engine in it. It's a Case. So the Case steam engines, Case tractors. We also made a Case car. This is a lovely model here. It's in very good condition. Big car. You can put 3 people in the front and probably 4 or 5 in the back. And if you go down the road, you pop up, pop down, whatever you like there. And this is original condition and original paint. And it was taken down to the 100th anniversary of a Case, and then brought back. It's been driven and praised. It's one of only 5 left in all of North America. The former owner was Frank Hyde of Elkhorn, Manitoba. It was donated by Isaac Clarkson. And just take a look at the motor here. Like, this is something else. 4-cylinder motor, 2 cylinders in a stack there. Just a massive motor. Water cooled, of course, but I expect this car to go pretty fast. With the size of wheels on it, they're a third or a half bigger than the other cars we've been looking at. And it's a 1913. This is 2 years prior to the beginning of World War I. This car was built for rough roads, deep ruts. It would go like crazy, I imagine. And fantastic condition, absolutely fantastic condition for the age. We're talking here in 2021, we're looking at a 108-year-old car.
And it almost looks like bucket seats in the front. And I remember the bar that you hung on to when you were riding. I mean, this is pre-seatbelt days. I'm sure there was times when those 30-inch tires hit some bumps that were rather interesting. And I would love to hear the horn. Maybe it goes ayuga.
We're getting down to the end of the first row here. There's the 1929 Ford Model 8. Very, very collectible car this would be. There's still many of them on the road. They were so simple. You can actually, there's a company in Edmonton where if you wanted to, you can order the parts and you can build the whole car. They recommend you have a chassis because chassis are still fairly common. But you could buy every part, I understand, for this car out of a company in Edmonton. And if you're missing a few pieces, that's the place to go to get it. But there's literally hundreds of these cars, thousands of these cars still around. Many of them still running.
Probably talk about them here and then we'll go through.
At the end of the building here, we've got a ventilation fan going to give us some interference here. We've got a Jeep light vehicle here. I can't read all the names and I don't recognize them all, but we'll maybe even go a little faster around the end here because of this and without commentary, but we'll just give you a visual of them and move back up to the other row.
And after we got past the case, I saw, of course, the famous Case Eagle on the rad. And I'm noticing some of the hood ornaments on vehicles. So we'll go into the no talk zone.
As we move away from the fan a little bit, maybe able to hear the commentary. Here's the 1929 International Harvester Company half-ton fuel truck. Well, that's a mighty big half-ton. But anyway, the fuel tank on the back for delivery fuel to the farm, or possibly even delivery fuel to the service stations. But definitely a big, big, powerful truck for its day. This truck came out in 1929, the year of the stock market crash, so I would imagine the person that had to make the payments on this vehicle originally sweated a few nights on how to do that in the 1930s. The 63 Chrysler Saratoga, very much a luxury car of the day. A little more expensive and in fantastic shape. Beautiful restored condition.
And what's this different piece of equipment here?
That's a good question.
There's a tag on it.
Tag up, yes there is. Oh, it's a grain crusher. I should have recognized that. It's a grain crusher for making chop for the pigs and chickens.
Okay.
A fire truck. It dates back to 1922, American LaFrance pumper truck. Huge motor in it again too.
Does
Big boy.
LaFrance still make fire trucks?
I don't know that. That's a good question. I do not know that.
And there's
Certainly
the
with many of them around.
gear on the wall from the fire department.
Yeah, hasn't changed a lot.
Well, I think it's a little more insular now.
Yeah, probably. But this was a lot better than the horse-drawn or even hand-pulled pumper trucks that they had to try and put out a fire.
Big searchlight on it so they can see what they're doing. Fighting a fire at night. The lighting on this side is a little more shaded, so we'll rely on our technical people in NACTV studio to do their usual magic if it's possible.
We'll maybe do a sweep of the farm artifacts here, but there's just dozens too many to comment on down this one side here. We'll go down the car row, down to the end to close off this section of the video here, but we're only giving you a bird's eye view of the museum. A lot of grain cleaning equipment on this side. Won't see a label on this car, but
Might be on the front.
in the late 40s anyway. Oldsmobile. I don't think we've seen an Oldsmobile yet. Became, of course, part of General Motors. A lot of companies hit into financial trouble and were absorbed under the General Motors title. And that happened a lot, as you say.
What I am observing in the donation cards and some description on the vehicles is how far afield some of these vehicles have been donated to this museum, which is a credit to the instigator of the museum, the founder, and the committee that have continued it, because obviously people see the value in donating their vehicle to this Manitoba Auto Museum, and so, and again, credit goes to them that they've been recognized by so many people.
We just passed a Hudson car back here, this gray one here, and a Cadillac truck, which is, as far as I know, very, very rare. Then we get into a 50s and 60s phenomena here, the station wagon.
Got any stories to tell about Ramblers?
Nah, probably not. The
Wasn't that the one that was the ambulance?
no.
Oh, okay, that was another one.
That was a different one. Rambler car. They were put together as it's an American company, of course. This is a Rambler American, and I think that was their top of the line car. Station wagon, seat 8 people, 9 people. Really touted as a family vehicle. Packed the whole hockey team into the one car. Not great power, only 60 horsepower. It's interesting note on the ticket there. It says the original spare has never been used, from 1962, but they were used for somewhat for school buses, for everything. They were fantastic cars. They were absorbed later by Chrysler. 38 Plymouth here. My father had one of these cars, not this car, but a car like this. It replaced the 28 Ford, and it was certainly a step up from the 28 Ford. Good on the gravel roads, big heavy car, and I can honestly say I'm not sure I've seen another 38 since I saw the one leave the yard when I was a child, until I seen this one. I maybe seen one other one in between.
Right now would be a good time to switch over to the implements and farm equipment, because we're into the horse equipment some, and
even a side saddle there.
Side saddle, 2 side saddles, and a lot of what I would call an army saddle. It looks a little like an English saddle, and horse collars, and the power that broke the prairie sod. The interesting thing, we were visiting with a friend today, and she says 100 years ago poor people had horses and only the rich had cars. Now only the rich have horses and everybody has cars. So it was a rather interesting observation.
And she said an interesting little play on words. She says, how the stables have turned. And we get into a little bit more powered equipment, some hand powered, some gas powered. Tremendous amount of equipment here that was required to keep the farm running. And running a farm was almost a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week operation in those days, especially with milking cows and all the hand feeding and everything of livestock. But just a tremendous tribute to history here.
And the motor isn't on it, but there is a rear tined cultivator, not rotavator, in the lineup, which takes me back to our Troy-built rear front wheels rear rotavator, and I don't know if there's a date on it, but
it's a Planet Junior.
It's a Planet Junior.
It had not Plant but Planet for some reason. Anyway, it had a number of attachments. It would have a potato tiller. It would have the scuffler that it has there on the back. It would have a potato digger. It may have even had a mower that you put on the back. I can't remember. But it was the multi-tool of the day back in the 40s and 50s, even into the 60s.
And we take water so much for granted. There's a couple of yard pumps, and they're wooden cased ones, as well as a cistern pump, and something I can't remember noticing before, a pump with 2 spouts on it. Whether it just, when you pumped it, you filled 2 pails at once, so it was twice as fast. But and a wooden bucket hanging on there as well. And a little further along, there's the yoke for the oxen. And oxen, a much more reliable, steady animal when they were at first tilling the soil out in the prairies. So we'll go back to the cars. It's on the other side because it is the Auto Museum.
So here we have a couple of examples of early Dodge vehicles, Dodge Brothers. Of course, that name's still there today. I particularly like this one. I was at the museum many, many years ago. I'm sure this is the one I fell in love with back then. Anyway, it's a 1919 Dodge, and quite a long hood on it. They were more expensive, I believe, than the Model A, Model Ts. Well, the Model T in the 1919, but they were a very solid car. A gray Dort. There was quite a few of those made. I don't honestly know if it was a Canadian-built car or not, but this one was owned by Henry Carlson, Erickson, Manitoba, and it says jointly. Gray Dort was owned jointly by the Dort Motor Company of Detroit and by William Gray Campbell of Chatham, Ontario, and they closed the company a few years later. Not many Gray Dorts around anymore, for sure. Probably a lot more 64 Plymouth Valiants. These were a really good car. They were very popular, and we actually owned one at one time. It was a 63 or a 64. Very easy car to work on, very simple. Maxwell touring car. Not a common car today for sure. Hotmobile. If ever there was a name for a car that was mysterious, they're Hotmobile. Let's say 1914. A lot of car companies failed or amalgamated over the course of the First World War. I think they got forced into making, I shouldn't say forced, but got into making war materials, and some of them didn't go back to cars, or they were absorbed by their companies towards the end of the war and into the 1920s. It's amazing the difference. Now this one car is up on blocks a little bit, so it's a little higher. How much higher some of the cars are than the others.
Quite a few of them are on blocks, but not quite as obvious as that. It puts it about 2.5, 3 inches off the cement.
They're up on blocks to save the tires, and because it would be a constant job to keep the tires totally inflated here. Some of these tires may even be original tires. 1920 Model T Ford. This is a classic Model T. Saxon, little wee sporty car, 2-seater. Can't say as I've ever heard of it. Dates from 1916. Saxon.
And those have got to be racing tires.
Well, they're certainly narrow, and it looks like a racing style car. Then we have another hearse. This one is a 1916 Overland motor driven hearse. It came from Rossford, Manitoba. It was still in running order in 1996.
The carved draped paneling on the exterior appears to be wood carved, beautifully done, very elaborate, very, very elaborate. And I'm sure the funeral home that had that one kept it polished and gleaming as they served their customers, the families.
Down to the end of the row here, some beautiful cars. I'm going to sneak around to the front here to see it because I don't know this one. I should, but I don't know this one. Oh, here it is here. It's 1930 Marmon. M-A-R-M-O-N. And a sports coupe. Very fancy car.
I love the extra trunk.
And a rumble seat.
Okay, that would have been the rumble seat.
I would think that's the rumble seat there.
And this was where you carried your picnic lunch. And the steps to get up into the rumble seat.
Yeah, right up over the fender. The rumble seat would seat 2 people. And, well, maybe 3 if you really want to be friendly. And so they were common in a lot of cars. This is much more in the style of the classic cars, like the very high-end cars, the Rolls-Royce, the Duesenberg, cars like that.
Would you guys need just a few more minutes to finish up your recording? Or
Give
is,
a couple minutes.
No,
we can keep the kids outside for
No, please don't.
we've got a wonderful addition to the museum right now. There is a touring group coming through, so there's little murmurings in the background, a children's group. Wonderful to see. And the staff was just checking to make sure if we wanted privacy or not, but this is just great. So, is this the first time you've been to the museum?
This is the first time.
Where do you come from?
I come from British Columbia.
From British Columbia. Well, thank you for coming. Are you from British Columbia too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all 3 brothers.
Wow.
3 brothers. Oh, somebody's got a very busy household.
Good.
Enjoy them. There's a lot to see.
Tremendous amount of stuff here. Some other cars we don't hear of, and I've never heard of, a 1902 Holtzman. Looks like a Carriage Works built car. 1902, like, I mean, that's way back, way back. Henry Ford was making his cars, but not the Model T, in 1898 or 99. This one is a very early car.
Even with the high wooden wheels,
Yeah.
and they have had a rubber rim put on them that may be an add-on.
So if you can peek in there, it's a belt drive. A belt drive on each of the back wheels. So it's basically a carriage with a motor added onto it, is what it is.
Oh, a horseless carriage.
A horseless carriage, it is at that.
That would be why they called them that.
One of the earlier 1917 Model T, 1911 Model T.
This is a 1909 Humble Roadster. There's a nice gold, black, and blue.
And the last car in this row here is a 1909 Metz.
And despite the fact I work at a car museum,
And what drew my eye
is actually a Waddell.
was the 1911 fair. And I'm not sure which fair that is.
Well, let's take a real close look.
Mountain Dew, Foster's Club soda, mission beverages, liberal wine in a basket.
I think it's actually Elkhorn Fair. Yeah, Elkhorn Summer Fair, 1911.
And as a young person, I can remember coming with my friend to help show horses at the Elkhorn Fair back in the 60s. And they had a tremendous fair then. And their campgrounds over by the fairgrounds. Perhaps it was canceled for 2 years. Hopefully they're still having a fair. I have not kept track of that. Some prints on the wall, Indian willow baskets, and Indian artifacts, arrowheads, some bells, possibly from schools, cook stove.
I'm going over the highlights.
So we'll conclude this portion of the tour with a scan of all the rifles they have on display here. Absolutely amazing. Some are bolt action, and they are all numbered with descriptions of them all. You could spend hours here just examining all the various rifles and artifacts in the museum. So we'll see what the rest of the day looks like, but that concludes this portion of the tour. So thank you for being with us.
We've come inside the one-room schoolhouse, which is very familiar to me. It feels very much like at home. And my goodness, there was 2 washrooms in theirs. And I don't see the heating system. Oh, there's the heating system is what I started with in grade 1. A pot-bellied stove at the back. And it's the Archie School, built in 1896, closed June 30th, 1968. The rural schools were having trouble finding teachers, and road conditions and busing was much more available. And the smaller schools were closed down and children transported to larger centers. And it's interesting because it says, "I must not put chalk in inkwells." And someone obviously had to write 100 lines of that as a lesson to remember not to put chalk in inkwells. The grade 6 math assignment, 456 multiplied by 78, and the answers aren't there. Some early audio-video equipment, the slide projector, a movie projector, that would have been it may not have even been in this school. Some display of the bell and a reminder to come to the Elkhorn Boys and Girls Club Fair, October 8th, 1920. And they were learning to tell time on an analog clock, which has its advantages. Don't get me started. A typewriter, globes, atlases, looks like a comptometer, there. Well, maybe it's just a typewriter. World map. Plaques. Map of the United States. And although not a teacher, he is the substitute today. And what is the day plan for this school?
Well, the day plan for today, Tuesday, the 2nd of November, 1958. Before the morning recess, grade 1, Kathy to help Bill and June with reading. This is 8 grades, of course. Grade 2, Aaron to help Josh with long and short vowels. Grade 3 and 4, read the next story, review new words with Mary. Grade 5, times table flashcards with Fred, Kel, and Ron. Grade 6 and 7 combined with the teacher, parts of a good story, then a story, titled My Dog and Snow. And grade 8, helping grades 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then afternoon, and that day, they were going to have a film strip after the PM recess, after the afternoon recess. And grade 6 and 7 and 8 were going to study social studies with a game, and Aaron was to run the game. Notes all over the desk here. Straight pen, fly coils, because there would be flies in here, and all kinds of books here, a book called Mary of Mile 18, and a spelling book, lots and lots of words there. Some of them aren't all that easy, not for the younger grades anyway. So this scene was repeated thousands of times across Manitoba for decades and decades. And many of our people today were, there's still many around who got their start in education in a one-room school. Christine on camera today being one of them at the school at Scarth, Manitoba. This one being the Archie School near Elkhorn, Manitoba. So that's our lesson for today. And I'm glad I don't have to be a substitute teacher. I think it would be awfully hot in here today with 8 grades and trying to teach them all at the same time.
The original lighting is out of the building. It would have been drop down globes. But I do notice the rod across the front of the school where the Christmas concert platform would be behind, and the curtain that would hide the scene changes and the preparations between each act, each performance. And the schoolhouse was the center of a lot of things. Several twin desks back from the era. And it says here, Mrs. Lorraine Scott, last 3 years, drove 26 miles for 8 or 9 students, is how I'm reading it. And it closed June 30th, 1968. That's a long drive to commute to work back in those days. And back on the wall, there's an Elkhorn school band. The Elkhorn school was one of the 4 square multi-story buildings that was so common in some of the larger communities. And there is a painting of it at the back. Ken is just checking out the car. Thinks maybe it's a Mercury. Hood ornaments were a little fancier back then. And this is the 1912 Pioneer House, donated by the Soder family. It was moved to the museum property in February 2012. All fundraising, restoration, repairs, and moving of museum artifacts was done by restoration volunteers. The official turnover to the museum board was on September 13, 2015. And even without the sign on there, by the leaded glass windows, probably on the parlor, not just stained glass, but leaded glass. Anything with leaded glass tends to predate World War I. And that's usually a sure sign of an older home. So we'll just go inside and see what there is to see.
So we're in the Soder house, and it's the kitchen probably a little more packed than a normal kitchen would be. For one thing, there's 2 cook stoves. Also an ice box over in the corner. The Hoosier, a beautiful oak Hoosier. Their kitchen cabinet, high chair, press back high chair up at the kitchen table. A couple of big butter bowls, mixing bowls there. Really, really nice display. The home is in very, very good condition. The flooring has been replaced with modern flooring to look like the older style flooring, but it's certainly been renovated. The ceiling tiles are not original. They would be from the 50s or 60s, but the house is in really good shape. The windows are, some of them are newer as well, but it's a great example of the early 1900s type of house. And the kitchen, of course, was the heart of the whole farm. Everything revolved around the kitchen. Over beside the cook stove here, just about every farm home would have had a cream separator. Everybody had at least one cow, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 cows, and would ship cream to the local creamery. And with the cream and egg money, that's what you ran the house with. And the grain money and the cattle money, of course, got to pay the mortgage, and the pigs would got to pay the mortgage on the farm and the farm operating costs.
And if you were lucky, you had a large enough flock of laying hens to fill one of those
15 dozen.
15 dozen eggs, and they are called what kind of egg crate?
I can't remember, I think it's log cabin. It's a collapsible crate anyway. Takes up less space when it's being stored.
And you would take those to the local closest train station, and ship them off to the egg grading station, which may have been here in Elkhorn. I know definitely Verdon down the line east of here had a grading station and a creamery.
To make butter. Some
could make butter.
Some would make ice
And I
cream.
can't help but notice the name neatly done on the can. And I can't remember who at the Neepawa Creamery had the honor of making those names on cans so that after they were dropped off and you came back to pick up your cream can, you always got the right one back because your name was on it.
We'll move into the living room area, dining area.
It was definitely modernized. That's not an original chandelier, but it certainly looks nice in the room.
Oh yes. And as Christine mentioned, outside the lead glass window is original. Prior to 1915, the house built into 1912. So we have some beautiful pictures here, some paintings, a huge store display case. This wouldn't be original to the house. This would be a display case from a jewelry store or from a grocery store, dry goods store or whatever, Chinaware. But it was some beautiful samples of the older style china. Some of this would predate the house. Certainly some of this china would be prior to 1912.
A painting, an original by Mrs. G.W. Sinclair, done in 1950 when she was 75 years old, and she is the mother of Newton, nicknamed Chub. And it looks like a successful hunt by the picture and the strain of the person pulling the toboggan.
So a round table, not uncommon at all. Lion ball claw feet and press back chairs. They were, if you were a little bit more well-to-do family, you would have the press back chairs because they're more expensive than, of course, the plain wooden chairs. There's a good chance that a lot of this furniture was ordered from Eaton's of Canada through Eaton's catalog. Not for sure, but certainly a good chance that some of it was. Table set for a family gathering. Only thing missing is the roast chicken. Then into the living room or parlor. Not quite as jam-packed as the kitchen is. Be more set up in the style of the way original house would have been, but 2 pianos, wouldn't have likely been 2 pianos, but it could have been
Organ.
a piano and an organ.
And portable keyboard.
Yeah.
My goodness.
The
Tremendous.
gramophone, the old style gramophone, a couple of harpsichords, beautiful old china cabinet, and a chaise lounge or a fainting couch here at the front. old Morris chair over in the corner, and a big radio. The radio wouldn't have been original to the house either. That wouldn't have come in until the 1920s or 30s, when battery operated radios and maybe even the auto electric radio was coming in that era. But it's quite a lovely display furniture, tribute to the community. And over in the corner by the window, just about every home had a Chinese checkerboard. Many an hour we played on that.
Seeing it.
Right by the window.
Oh,
And
oh, it's a square one.
yeah, it's unusual. It's a square one, not a round one.
And yeah, not tin.
Plain lead glass windows in the parlor living room as well. And this would be the original windows, and I think the original casings in this room too. The other ones were redone, but these are the original casings. They would have been done in a wood tone varnish, but they've been painted. Still very attractive, and so it makes for quite a good replication of how life would have been in the early part of the 1900s in a farm home. This is likely a farm home in the Elkhorn area.
The interesting thing, Ken would just step to out into the dining room for a second. All the instruments that are displayed here, because you made your own entertainment. When you gathered together, you made your own entertainment. Hence, there is a violin back over my left shoulder in the corner, the gramophone, and it's a cylinder style gramophone up on top of the china cabinet.
Record one in the corner.
And a wind-up flat record one in the corner. So it's very interesting that they have done an excellent job of showing how we entertained ourselves. We didn't need entertainment in the same way. And there's 2 violins.
Over here in the corner too, I just wanted to point out this was a 1905 wedding dress, so it predates the house by 7 years, and it was donated by Laurie Thompson from Winnipeg, and just quite an interesting dress, quite elaborate, really.
Well, that would be ermine.
Ermine, that's definitely ermine. Yes, the muff and the cape are ermine, and still got the little tiny weasel claws and paws right there on the cape.
Genuine.
It's genuine, yes, for sure.
But to take time to see all of the artifacts in here, and almost all have a donation card. I see what I would call a cocoa pot over there, and several original paintings on the wall. Tremendous, again, support by those who've seen it worthy. And in the museum, I had noted or taken a close-up of some butterflies, and there's more butterflies done up in a painting, and they're painted, reverse painted on the glass, so they're not actually butterflies, but representation of them. So that's through there.
And there's a second story. There's a hall tree or bench, very nice, quite maybe not elaborate, but very, very nice. And back in the corner over here where they store the crocks, ready for making the pickles, or storing the different kinds of vinegar or drink or whatever in there. And behind us here is the display of all different kinds of lamps that might be available.
And this probably would have had a board across and hooks, and been the closet at the front entrance.
Yeah, it's probably not, this display.
This is a
not-
display cabinet.
Not likely original, but most of these are coal oil lamps, some very small ones, some larger ones. And I'm showing my age here and the fact that our family couldn't afford to put hydro into the house right away when it came through in 1949. We did not get hydro at our home at Holland, Manitoba, on the farm until 1954. And I can honestly say what little homework I had in grade 1, I did by the light of a lamp, just like this one right here. It's not an Aladdin lamp, but it's similar to the Aladdin lamp. So I can honestly say I did my homework by coal oil lamp when I was a child. I don't think I had very much homework in grade 1. So we'll turn and go up the stairs. So at the head of the stairs is another hall tree, gentleman's suit, be worn to mainly to weddings, certainly to church and funerals. Down in the corner we have a homemade rustic rocking horse. Quite elaborate really, it's a suspended horse, not an actual rocking horse, quite elaborately made, but homemade. So that's the upstairs hallway. Not a lot of homes had this much extra space. Is a bedroom, what appears to be a rope bed by the dip in the middle there, and nice dresser, lots of clothing here, baby pram, rocking chair for mama to rock the baby, or someone to rock the baby, big sister, big brother, rock the baby to sleep.
And with those low arms on that rocking chair, that would indicate it's a nursing chair, because where you held the baby would be in a different position than if you were just holding the baby. And so that would be, I believe, called a nursing chair.
This home was converted to electricity. Of course, electric lights are in use here in the building now. They wouldn't have been original in 1912, although there were farm homes that had a generator, wind-powered generator, I should say, and had a 32-volt electrical system, and this house might have been one of those. Another bedroom, looks like a child's bedroom with the toys, rocking horse, dolls, and doll carriages. Very nicely set up here, an old brass bed. They called that a double bed, even though it might only be 48, but I think that's a 54-inch bed, so it is a true double bed. Not a queen size or king size like they are today.
But you could get it up the stairs.
You could get it up the stairs. Big home. This is 4 bedrooms upstairs plus a bathroom.
And there's a good chance the bathroom may have been a small bedroom to start with.
Or it may have been the bathroom. Who knows? I don't see any plumbing pipes in here, but anyway, lots of bathroom stuff there. The bathroom sets, the jug in the pitcher, and down on the floor, of course, is the ever-present chamber pot. And no matter how pretty the flowers were on the chamber pot, it still didn't smell any better.
And upstairs, they do have half doors, so we can completely view the room, but access is limited, which is very wise. Oh my goodness, there's a fur coat.
Yeah, fur coat in this room is set up as a sewing room with 2 antique sewing machines in here, and a carding machine, a spinning wheel. We'll never get Christine out of this room. Anyway,
They won't let me in, fortunately.
very, very simple, and I don't know the make over at the far side there, but a sewing machine. And beside a carding machine, and then over a more traditional, it's not a Singer, I can't read the name on the end there, but of the sewing machine. But it's interesting that this room is set up as a sewing room, and it may well have been, other than a bedroom, if the family wasn't a large family. Could have been a sewing room, which was very important in the farm homes of the day, or any of the homes of the day, because the clothes were always being in need of mending. So this, I would dare say, is a boys' room with the hockey equipment and the farm toys, the homemade combine, wooden combine. Certainly not back in the original, because they didn't have combines back in 1912, but they had some of these other toys look like they were period correct, including that old fire truck there, a horse-drawn fire wagon or ladder wagon, and a big bed, and a little village on top of the chest of drawers in the corner. Very elaborately set up here, very nicely. I see that underneath there's more farm toys under the bed. There's a model airplane, I think.
And someone has done a panel quilt with all the school divisions, all the little schools.
Yeah.
There's
Boss Hill School. That was near where you went to school.
Boss Hill was where my mother went to school.
Yeah.
There's Hillside, Boss Hill, Mayville, and Scarth. But Boss Hill is south and east of here. So someone has done a tremendous amount of work. It's the Wallace something event. It may have been a centennial because its wall is 1886, probably to 1986.
The washstand in the corner. Scotty dog lamp, thousands of them made. And the washstand would have had the pitcher, the basin, and the door over there where you'd store the chamber pot. And so that you would have indoor plumbing of a sort. You had running water, both in and out. You ran the water from the well to the house, and the sewage you ran out to someplace out in the bush where you could dump it away from the house. A bunch of fair prize certificates there on the framed there. Someone obviously took a lot of entries to the fair. So I think that concludes our tour of the house, 1912 home, and well worth looking at.
Beautiful woodwork, although repainted and cleaned up. It is beautiful period woodwork and a very steep set of turning stairs. So down we go and out to the next spot. On the deck that's been added to the back of the house, and it may very well have been a porch one time, I can't see marks that indicate it. The use of the cream separator bases and old implement seats have been married to make wonderful seating that won't blow over in the wind. Ken's gone over to the little church that is obviously a recent addition. He's gone inside. It looks like one of those projects that's definitely at the beginning of its adventure. It has a new metal roof, and the entrance bell tower has been redone. And so I'm not sure there's much to see in it right now. I don't know, it doesn't say closed, but perhaps by the time you come, it will be ready.
So one of the several storage sheds here at the Elkhorn Museum, where they have their parade float racks for times when they can have a parade, which hopefully, this being the summer of 2021, that they'll be able to do that again. Then a large shed here with a large number of tractors and agricultural equipment stretches on quite a ways down the row there. It's just a fantastic museum showing the agricultural heritage of Western Manitoba. Way in the background, a thrashing machine or two, and lots of volunteers here. Tremendous amount of effort goes into this museum to keep it operational. It's quite clean and well looked after, and well worth the stop. $10 admission to get in, and it's, as I say, well worth it. If you're a car buff, it's an absolute must stop. If you just like agricultural equipment, it's pretty good for that as well.